Come one, come all to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. Come one, come all to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. Give praises to Jehovah, from whom all blessing and knowledge will flow. Blessing and knowledge will flow. The Village Talk Show, dedicating to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life, helping each one of us in realizing our dream at any age, any point, starting from today. Success. Come one, come all to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. Come one, come all to learn and grow. Welcome to the Village Talk Show. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow. We discuss what people need to know, empowering them to learn and grow.
Good evening and welcome to the Village Talk Show. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome to the Village Talk Show. And we are blessed to not have Roderick here right now. Yes.
He's on.
I know
hey,
he's
Andre.
on.
What's good? Roderick here.
Hey, Andre, Sophia, how are you?
Yes.
Well, John,
not driving, me and Andre.
It's just me and you. As usual, we have a place that is stationary, right? And we make sure that we're in a place where we can, not pay attention to two things at the same time.
Listen, I am paying attention to all of you. John, I'm doing a you today. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to welcome each and every you for joining us on the Village Radio Talk Show, where thank you for sharing, joining, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, where the Village Talk Show is dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education, helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age, at any point, starting from today, where success is not just spoken, it is done.
Roger, the camera.
Yeah, this
my camera is here. I want to make sure I don't get lost. So if my camera disappears or you hear my navigations, because it's telling me where I'm going. And I think I just missed my stop.
Oh my goodness!
All right, just get off, get your stuff,
You
and
can
then
join
come
us
back
back later, please.
Yeah.
No.
This is what we should not do.
Or you stop somewhere and just like stay.
No, we're good.
And this the person who's always complaining about the red light cameras, right? Red light cameras, tickets, and
Right.
Yo, let's get right into it, baby. Let's just get into it. While we wait, let's get into it.
Oh my goodness!
Before I get into it, can you believe that at the airport they actually went in my suitcase and stole my stuff? Can you believe that crap?
What did you have?
Some expensive items.
Well,
marijuana. They took your weed.
Yes, they did. Oh man.
Well,
they took the weed, boy.
I don't know.
They took my weed. They took my Louis Vuitton merchandise. They decided whatever they want to take, they're gonna take.
They really did that though?
Yeah, they did. They went.
Yo, Roger. You mean the Louis Vuitton merchandise you got from China? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that same one.
Yeah, it can be replaced. I'll take it to my man on Delancey Street. I take it to my man on Delancey Street.
Yeah, I got you. What do you want to get to, John? What do you want to get to?
You know what I want to get into is the damn hypocrisy of the Republicans regarding that horrible, horrific shooting in Texas. You know, they get on stage and pontificate how sorry they are for the families, the communities. But when it comes to enacting reasonable and sensible gun legislations, they are nowhere to be found.
That's true.
It is horrible. It is horrible to the point where these young children, DNA had to be extracted from their parents in order to determine who is who.
Wow.
And I think what should happen is, you know, it's very unfortunate, is that the pictures of these young people, the way they have been massacred, needs to be shown throughout the world and say, this is the result of those Republicans who do nothing when it comes to reasonable and sensible gun legislation here in America. I'm tired of them saying my prayers and my thoughts are with you. The hell with your, I don't want your prayers. I don't want your thoughts. I just want you to do your job. Do your job, because you will come to the point where these elected positions are not, it's an honor to be an elected official. It is not a birthright. And they think it is their fundamental birthright. They are not protecting no one. When you got almost 60, 70% of even Texans who believe in sensible sensible gun legislation, background checks, and something very simple, that these young, if you look at the last couple of mass shootings, there have been young men under the age of 20 years old, 18 years old, who have had access to these weapons of war. This kid was 18 years old. On his 18th birthday, he went to a gun shop, purchased an AR-15. Next day, he purchased over 300 rounds of ammunition. All of this cost about $3,000 change. He had no job. He was a high school dropout. And how was he able to do all of this, to create such a massacre? And then you look what happened in Buffalo, the young man, another disgruntled, you know, when do we, you know what, the only time it's unfortunate. The only time these elected officials will wake up is when one of their family members are become victim to this carnage.
You're right about that.
That's the only time they will wake up.
Your mic went off. Okay, you're back. I do agree with you that.
So that's it's just a damn hypocrisy. They just piss me off. That, you know, Governor Abbott up there. Oh, I mean, get the hell. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. You know, I don't agree with Beto O'Rourke did. Beto, that's not a place to pontificate. You hold a press conference outside. You don't do that while that is going on. You know what I'm saying? You do that outside. You know, but it's become so political. It's disgusting, man. It's disgusting. The Republicans, those who fail to really do the work of the people, are disgusting human beings. You know, it's just, if it was one of their children or their grandchildren that got massacred like that, I want to know what they would do.
They would have definitely made some changes, but because it's never their family that's impacted, it doesn't matter. You know, it's the least of their concern. They're more concerned about women's rights and abortion than they are about children who are actually living and alive, and people who are actually alive.
And they talk about abortion. They're talking about Democrats being baby killers. They are baby killers. McConnell are baby killers. Ted Cruz, they are baby killers because they failed to enact reasonable and sensible legislations to stop the proliferation of guns throughout this country. It's not going to stop people from doing what they're doing. Let's slow them down at least. Let's make an effort. The same effort that they put in to prevent people from having the choice to have abortion or not.
Right.
Those same people We need to give our children an opportunity to live life instead of being cut down. They were 2 days away, two
Wow.
days away from summer vacation.
That is true. That is true.
I wanted to add to that a couple of sad news as well, John and Joanne. One of the teacher who died by this horrific, heinous act. Her husband had a heart attack today, and he died,
Wow.
Wow.
leaving behind 4 children. Right? We don't know the ages of those children yet.
Hold on. He had a heart attack and died?
Yeah, he had a heart attack and died today.
You know-
What?
Yep. They were married for 24 years, right? They were married for 24 years, and obviously he had some obviously he was very distraught. He was very, very distraught by this situation, and he had a heart attack today. And while we're on the topic of gun violence, right? We still look at those 2 young people, 18-year-old, 15 years old, 18-year-old, shooting at a 13-year-old, killing an 11-year-old. So
Roger.
when you
He's frozen.
how many lives are you going to lose? How many lives? Hey, listen, I tell people of guns and strong support of real reforms when it comes to guns. Real. Because again, and while I'm also on the subject, I want to talk about school safety. Those agents in school who are the front lines, and people, I want to hear garbage about we need to get rid of school safety agents and all those people in schools. Who are protecting our kids? Guidance counselors is going to hide like everybody else. And I don't blame them.
Well,
So,
you know what? More focus is on that, securing and making sure that the safety and the well-being of children in school is number one priority. Now, other states are spending millions of dollars to try to protect the children while in the school building. So, while people complain about school safety, we actually do need more people securing the area where the children are, because we have people who come out and do things like this completely. These kids had nothing to do with this gentleman who decided to go on a rampage. My thing is,
listen, honestly, I don't even care, to be very honest with you, if the children had anything to do with this 18-year-old.
It should have never happened.
This should never happen.
Absolutely.
Never.
But my point being that there's no relations, nothing at all. And
right, I get what you're saying.
Here's the thing. If the person believes that they have nothing to live for, they don't care who they attack or harm. There's
Absolutely.
a lost hope. He lost hope somehow. And I'm tired of people using, hey,
the innocent. They're using the innocent. Let's call it what it is. That's why I say respectable gun laws. They're using
and everyone who has
innocent. They're killing the innocent.
Illness. That's crazy to me. So here it is. The first thing they're gonna say, hey, they have mental illness. They should have had a gun. Period. That's my problem with
And
that.
you know what, Doc and Roderick, we can argue that he shouldn't have had a gun, but we have to face realities. There are guns available he was legally entitled to have a gun.
Right.
And the question is that what brought this young man to the point where he
Exactly.
became so hopeless
Mm-hmm.
that he was willing to just give up his life and take the life of others. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a deeper conversation when we talk about the family, and it wasn't your normal traditional family. He was living with his grandparents, and his mother said, although they had issues, but never to this magnitude that she would think her son would do something like this. And furthermore, for this young man to even shoot his shoot his grandmother, I mean, in the face, it's horrible. I mean, it's incomprehensible. I just don't understand. Um, I just can't make sense of this.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, many, including yourself, myself, I'm tired of hearing, you know, hey, my condolences or whatever. No, do something
Tired of
about
hearing that. Tired of hearing that shit.
it. Do something about it. And you know what? I take it all back to people eventually becoming desensitized to many things. That is one way that COVID did something on all of us. But now our young children are like, oh my God, do you know how many kids got killed? Having first graders, kindergarten kids, talk about that. That is, a loss for everybody. Parents having to have that conversation constantly. Okay, yes, baby. When you go to school or whatever, you're figuring, hey, you're sending your children to be safe in a school building. Hey, they'll be safe to learn or whatever. But that is another set of fear. Not only walking in the street, coming out of school, getting shot, walking home with your family, getting shot, but sitting in a school building to learn, and then you have terrorists deciding to jump in and do whatever. So that's the problem. That is, there was so many different fear coming from everywhere. Getting sick, then walking in the street. So it is sickening. We're becoming a country of fear,
True.
and that's a problem. That is a problem.
True.
And why? Because now we're so desensitized to what we're seeing. We're constantly seeing all these shows on TVs where people are getting shot and killed. We're looking at the news. The kids are being exposed to these things, conversation, the music, everything. So, wow, is all I have to say. You eventually become numb to this. And I don't want to be numb to hearing about, I'm starting to lose feelings about this. It is heartbreaking, but guess what? I am starting to lose sense in regards to, oh my God, I don't know what to feel. I don't have no feeling anymore because this is like nonstop. Every week you're hearing something new. I don't know. It's way bigger than us. And the sad thing is, our elected officials are not doing what they're supposed to, lest it impact them. So I don't know. Oh boy.
And it's to the point now where it's just become, like you said, become numb and commonplace. And another incident in New York on the subway where a guy just walks up to a 49-year-old man in the subway car
Mm-hmm.
and just terminates his life. We have lost all moral
Mm-hmm.
and spiritual compass in our lives. We have become so, some individuals have become so heinous that they are willing to just snuff out the lives of another human being without any sort of justification whatsoever. And it just goes to the heart of who we are. When are we going to
When are we going to change?
what
Well,
is what's happening here? You know, I mean, it's just violence has become so commonplace that, Doc, you said that we're becoming numb to it. But we shouldn't. We need to be comfortable. When we are uncomfortable, that is when we do something about it.
That's true.
Congress need to be put out of office for their inability to get stuff done. Period. Exclamation point. You know, we could talk about the Democrat, Republican, and we talk about Biden just doing an executive to do some changes in respect to George Floyd. I mean, okay, this is an executive order. The next president, you keep them or get rid of them. It goes to the heart of who we are as individuals. Being in elective office is a privilege to represent the people. It is not a birthright.
Delia had a comment in regards to they're not doing their job. You're correct. Enough is not being done to stop the madness. And to top it off, we need to go out to vote these people out of office. So we think that only I totally agree with Samson. The assessment of the tragedy in Texas shouldn't have never happened. Continue to let the truth be told. Shame on our congressmen and women who continue to turn their heads. That's true. Until it happens to them, then it's a different song and dance. And not wait until, the presidential election to go out and vote. It is so much bigger than that. We have to make our elected official uncomfortable because we're uncomfortable with what's happening. So it is about time. I just want to see people stand up the same way that they did for Black Lives Matter. They need to do it in every shooting area. In our community, we need to
Doc, can you say that again? Please say that again.
I need people to have the same energy and force and power and anger they had the same way Black Lives Matter to come out and stand up and fight whenever we have one of our young boys and young women walking down the street, when we have these mass shootouts happening, we need to have that same energy. Not just a selected group of people who are always out speaking to the parents. We do have people making impact, but we need everybody's energy to be the same. The same way you're out there, hey, protesting, is the same way you need to be on the street protesting against crime against our Black and Black. We need to be out there. We need to be protesting against gun violence. The same energy. I am sick of people just sitting back and say, oh, well, it didn't happen to me. So until it happens to you, that's when you're going to feel the impact. No, get up, pick up your behind and start protesting to end that. It takes many hands to make this change happen. Just sick of it.
And let it be a police officer shooting a Black youth. Everybody's out there. But when it comes to the crime that is being proliferated in our communities on us, by us, where are we? Everybody says, oh, bail reform, bail reform. You know what? When we're given opportunities to show that we need to be given another opportunity once we have been released, we need to take advantage of those opportunities. There's a lot of former incarcerated people who do not support the violence that is going on in this community. And they really want to be involved and talk about it, go into the communities, educate these people, because it's very different what they see out on street and what they see what goes on behind those walls. Because what goes behind those walls is totally different. And to even go a little even further now, to jump off topic, but to really possibly stay on topic. Everybody talks about Rikers Island. Should the feds take over Rikers Island? Rikers Island is chaotic. The problem is we are the ones, the majority of correction officers on Rikers Island are people of color. And it is turmoil on Rikers Island. But when those same individuals go upstate, you don't hear much turmoil about it, because they're going upstate in those rural areas where they have white correction officers, and they abide by whatever they say or whatever they ask them to do. And what's interesting is one of those correction officers made a derogatory comment about what happened in Buffalo at the Top supermarket. And this is the correction officer who's responsible, who works in Attica, who's responsible for monitoring those individuals. So, this is our problem. This is our issues. We need to get out there. We need to get involved. We need to show America that we can police ourselves. We are not. Everybody talks about the mayor or what the mayor's doing. The mayor's been in office 5 months. And what you fail to realize is the mayor is ensuring that he's doing whatever he can.
Roger, that might be
Can you hear me?
perfect.
Okay. And what the mayor is basically doing is, if you see that those individuals who are committing crimes, they're being captured within 24 to 48 hours. Just think about that. That means that our police officers are actively involved. What we have to do is, as citizens, we also have to be engaging and involved. If we see something going on, we need to contact the police. We have to learn how to police ourselves. We can no longer have a blind eye to what goes on in our communities. He talks about, the broken windows theories. Those small minor crimes lead into bigger crimes. Everybody we want all this freedom. They want us to give everything, defund the police, give it back to the community. But when they give it to us, what do we do with it? What do we do with that money, those resources? Because Donald Trump made an important point. People may not want to hear it, but all this chaos going on in the urban communities, they are represented by Democratic legislators.
John, I've always had a crisis, right? A crisis belief. Why is it that so many, not all, why are so many urban areas that struggles the most are overwhelmingly Democratic? Overwhelmingly, when you look at New York City, New York State, Buffalo, Rochester, Brooklyn, the Bronx, parts of Manhattan, parts of Queens, Hempstead. Why are these areas predominantly governed by Democrats and Blacks? So what is causing this problem within our community? I don't know. So it's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Can you hear me, Joe?
I can hear you.
Yeah, it needs to be answered, Roger. But we know the answer, Roger. We know the answer. We can't be afraid to call out our people, man. We cannot be afraid to call a spade a spade.
You know what? One of my issues really strong is no matter how you look at it, it's the me. I'm at the top now, you stay at the bottom. And people, a lot of times you hear people talk about other cultures, and we have had this conversation before on the show. You identify other cultures and you say, this is what they do. And then if you want to, don't look at it in a negative way, but look at it in a way that you want to emulate, right? I do want to touch on a couple of topics before our guest comes on, right? I don't know if our guest is here yet, and Andre will let us know that, right? But one of them that I think I wanted to go back to the gun shooting. What I'm glad is not the right word. It's a poor choice of word, right? It's a very, very poor choice of word. And that is that the kid that did the shooting in Texas did it after the white kid. Because had that Spanish kid did it, let's say it was from Buffalo, then you're going to have the racial component that came into play. So I don't want to, the word glad is not the right word. It's a very, very poor choice of words.
Yeah.
You're right. But the point I want, because Republicans are going to be driven, that's why we should have immigration reform. That's why we should do all of these things. But the reality in America is that America has a problem. And the problem they have when you look at gun violence is not about color. Unfortunately, however, that the black on black crime is ridiculous, right? And that's not really being addressed, but you address Black Lives Matter when it comes to policing. So all of those things combined, we really have to look at what is happening. What is America coming to?
And you know what? Black Lives Matter it should not only be towards white killing black, it should be black towards black. You know, hey, Black Lives Matter, that means you killing your own just because of beef. That's ridiculous.
And that's one of the problems that I have.
Can't pick and choose. If you're gonna say something, it's across the board.
They do talk about black lives, right? They do talk about black lives, right? And black on black crime. But the emphasis is what is media ready.
Mm-hmm.
They do talk about blacks killing blacks. They have those conversations, but they highlight police brutality. They highlight when a white man kills a black man, but they don't highlight the abundance of black people killing black people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't highlight that the blacks are number one dropouts of school, the most underqualified race when it comes to high-end jobs, right? The more single families are blacks, percentage-wise. They don't highlight why black lives should matter on all levels.
Well, you know, Roger, let me just interject right there, Roger. And you know what? We can go into a diatribe based upon this, but there are a lot of what we want the villagers and we really want the public to know is that there are a considerable number of people of color who are extremely successful in life. And what I'm saying is, you know, sometimes the media and everybody spends so much time harping upon the negative aspects of a group and of an organization that you know, it just becomes a norm. But we really need to start, you know, profiling those individuals who are successful in the minority community to show them that there is an opportunity, there is another way out. It's
good
not
choices,
doom and gloom all the time, my friend. That, you know, that's all I'm saying. It's just not doom and gloom all the time.
You know, I on that subject too, John. I've done, I think, 4 or 5 career days this year.
One next week.
Right, and I have one more to do next week. And those of you listening on the show who are interested in doing career days, so we don't just focus on the negativity. Please let us know, because we love to talk to young people and coming out. If you want us to come out, we'll do that as well. If you're in education, you want that. But we have to highlight. It's just crazy, and BLM needs to highlight Black Lives Matter from the positive level. Celebrate our lives, right? Celebrate what's going on out there, which is not being done, and that's causing some of the issues that we're having.
And that's why we actually highlight, like you said, highlight different careers, different venues happening in the community, different things happening in the community, and appreciation of life is what we need to come back to, you know, because we're killing off generation that haven't even been given a chance. You know, what could have been.
What I mean, honestly, a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 15-year-old, 3 18-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's very unfortunate. And coming towards the summer, you're muted for some reason. You went off. Roderick? Okay.
Any great feats.
So, as we prepare for the summer, just want to make sure that, hey, we're a lot more mindful, and a lot more, let's look out for each other. That's the goal. Let's look out for each other. Let's go back to block association. Let's look out for Tommy down the block, or John. If you see, you know, somebody who needs help, or you see a child who, you know, something's about to happen, jump in, help out. Let's not wait to see them on the news and say, oh, I should have, could have, would have. It's too late. Let's change the narrative or try to interject before. If you notice something happening, or if you notice a child is off, or a teenager or something, let's try to get involved. You know, let's try to get them some support. You know, if we have family members who have mental illness, and we know sometimes they have a tendency, let's help out.
Yeah, but Doc, the but in that is that we have to start learning to also accept help. I've had conversations where I've heard I can do it by myself. No, you can't. No, you cannot. Because when you think on that level, so he thinketh, so he does. That means if you think that you can do it by yourself, that means that you will not help the next man along. Approach too.
Kill it with kindness. Kill it with love. We got to go back to that love thing that is so forgotten. Go back to love. You know, hey, we have to show people love. That's what's missing. That is the ultimate prescription. Love.
But how, some people don't know how to love. Some people don't know what love is. Some people don't know what to appreciate your brother and sister, to show them the same level of respect that you would show a family member, that you want to show a stranger. You know, where are we? Where is our moral and spiritual compass at? Where are we at?
You know,
are we so darkened that we cannot show respect to our fellow brother and sister?
Yeah, unfortunately. And that's where we have to change the whole narrative. We have to change that completely. This summer, let's aim for loving people. Yeah, they might not want to receive it, but show love.
And you know that is just so important to to not only, right, to not only show it, but the willingness to accept it, right? Because the willingness to accept it is also important. Because people don't, it's funny, like at times you tell people, oh, some people don't know how to say thank you.
People are broken, Roderick. They're broken.
It's not, I don't know if it's broken, Joanne. I don't know if it's broken. I really don't. I don't know that it's broken. I believe that some people just don't know and are comfortable or uncomfortable with other people showing gratitude. There's some people who don't know. There's some people out there, they're quicker to respond when you say something negative than when you say something positive.
Simone, I don't mean to interject. Is your daughter okay? Did she get home safely? Because she wrote, my daughter just had to run for her life because some guy downstairs from the subway had a gun or saw the kid and was chasing him. So fear again.
Wait, can you read that again? I didn't get a chance to.
My daughter just had to run for her life because some guy downstairs from the subway had a gun, or so the cops say, and was chasing him. This is scary. This is scary. This is the fear tactic we were talking about. People are broken indeed. Yes, they are.
Well, what do you mean by what do you mean by broken?
Like you said, people can't accept love. In any given moment, someone's ready to erupt, pull out a gun, stab you, do something. People are living on the edge. There's fear. So communication is lost in the process. There is a lack of communication or people engaging in conversation without being so touchy-feely and just being so abrupt. Anything. There is deeper issues happening. People are angry. And so many different reasons to be angry. They might not be working. They might have lost. They might be grieving still. So there's so many different elements that's beyond our control. And no, they won't know how to accept love, but you got to show it somehow. Learn how to show it. That's what it means to be a Christian. New York City people are naturally suspicious.
You know what?
Thanks. That is true. Warren, New York City people are naturally suspicious of each other.
No, and Brother Warren, man. Also, congratulations for your daughter graduating. But what's interesting is that in these urban areas, that's what it's like. But when you're going out south, and people are open. I was listening to Steve Harvey this morning. He said, this neighborhood, he said, lives in a mixed neighborhood, affluent. And he says, he goes around, walks around, and he says he got some of his neighbors still got Trump signs on their lawn. But they're saying, hey, Steve, how you doing, man? I'm listening to your show. I love you. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, we can respect one another's beliefs, but at the same time, we can still be respectful to one another. We may have different positions on issues, but we still can show the level of respect and courtesy to one another. We don't have to be angry all the time if you don't adopt what I believe in. No, we have different views. I respect your views, and let's try to learn from that. But at the same time, we can't demonize one another, and that's and this whole cancel culture is one way that people are demonizing one another. Because if you don't agree with me, we're going to cancel you. We're going to get rid of you. No, this is what makes this country the best country in the world. Differing views, but we need to respect those views. We need to respect one another. And the lack of respect that we have for one another is manifesting itself in a lot of this criminal activity that's going on in our communities and our streets.
I think you know, John, you bring up a very, very good point, and Joanne, also, like with the brokenness and the this, you know, it's kind of interesting when I travel, right? And I want to show you by the end of the show, Joanne, how much I want you remind me to show you where I am, right? Yes, people, I'm going to go play dominoes. I'm playing dominoes. That's where I am. I'm play dominoes. You stop it. Dominoes is important to me. Leave it alone. What's the call-in number? Nobody's in the studio, Simone. And my phone is acting up, so I don't know if another person has
He's
a second.
busy playing dominoes. He's busy playing dominoes.
I'm not playing dominoes, Simone. Not today. The tournament doesn't start.
I want to talk about the election that happened this week.
No, wait. I was saying to Simone that we're not in the studio. None of us are in the studio, so the call-in number and my number is acting up. So that's why I'm trying to get. Maybe I'm going to try to figure this out in a minute, right? But what I'm talking about is America is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Not just blacks.
Mm-hmm.
America is broken. We're broken religiously. We're broken economically, socially, right? The mere concept that the hypocrisy between both parties that exist, because there's no way that you cannot tell me with Sandy Hook, San Bernardino, Buffalo, right, the subway, Virginia Tech, and I go on, that a Republican cannot say that we actually need real gun reforms. But yet still, because of money, the Republicans are saying no. While at the same time, the Democrats are saying to do away with guns, and you can't.
But Roderick, you know why they say no? I'll give you the best example why they say no and why they stick to their guns. The best example is the possible overturn of Roe versus Wade. That has been in the making for years and for decades. Been in the making. And now they're on the verge because they know what to do. Stay steady, stay focused, don't get distracted, because the ultimate goal is to maintain power by all means necessary. And you'll see what continues to happen. Roe versus Wade is just a taste of what's to come if the Democrats don't get their act together. Because what Trump did was, what Trump did was, Trump put numerous conservative individuals on the bench.
Let's use the term ultra conservative.
Ultra
not just
conservative,
but ultra
on
conservative.
the judiciary. And what happens is that has given, as we call the minor leagues, that has given, those are the minor leagues for those individuals to become the next Supreme Court justice. This is what Donald Trump did. And this is not what only Donald Trump did. This is what the Republicans have talked about. Now they're on the
continue to do. Absolutely. I want to move on to two things. Right. Let's go back to the gun violence conversation for a minute. The 15-year-old boy is tried for murder. A lot of people talk about reform in the criminal justice system. killing that 11-year-old, do you think he should be tried as an adult for murder?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If he could pick up a gun and shoot someone and don't care about who whose impact, he should be tried as an adult. I don't care about his age because he didn't care about the young 11-year-old that died. So he could think about it the next couple of years. So no, I'm not going to be soft on him because he's only 15. He knew what he was doing.
But
Roderick.
No, wait. That is my stance as well. I hardline stance, but for me,
I'm not gonna be soft on that. We don't want to hear.
For me, right? I find the hypocrisy in the Democratic Party. Children have the ability to do things, and there's things that they cannot do. They don't have the mentality to do. We're willing to send them to jail for murder, but if they get up and sell weed, it's what their community allows them to do. Well, the murder is also something the community allows them to do too. So why do we join the line and say, this crime as a kid, 15-year-old kid, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, they don't have a mentality to do that. They're forced. But now because it's murder, they're not forced. They have the ability. That's what I'm just asking the question, because I'm throwing that question out there, that we pick and choose what crimes we want to look at and say they should be tried as adults. I look at it like, if you are able to think about a heinous crime, I'm trying you. And I'm not going to say, because you're 13, you don't have the ability to think about those things. I think that's just a question I'm throwing out there. That's why I'm putting it out there. I was just thinking about that. They're very quick to say, he committed murder, he took a life, and he needs to be tried for adults. But if he committed this crime, which is heinous, but it's not a life he took, he's a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's a crime of this, it's a crime of that, right?
But Roger and Doc, I think the fundamental question is, what went wrong in that young person's life that he made the choice to pick up a gun and to fire it at another human being to possibly take that human being's life? What is it?
His community. He's part of a gang. It's acceptable behavior. That's what he sees. Selling marijuana. It's his community. Selling coke, cocaine, crack. It's in his community. It's what he sees.
Warren asked a question. So if a juvenile is caught with a loaded firearm, should they be tried as an adult?
My role is yes.
I say yes,
because
too.
nobody in school, I've never taught a student that it was okay to be violent to the next person. No kind of crime. But you make a decision about what you're going to do.
But Roger,
I gotta go back. I gotta take that. You know why? Because if a 6-year-old come to school with a loaded gun and they don't know, they think, you understand? So he said juvenile, so I have to take consideration of the age. So it makes me step back and say, okay, maybe a 6-year-old.
Basically, Doc, now that we can't, there can't be a blanket statement. There have to be exceptions, situations, and the predicaments. So I think every case is different, and I think that's the way we need to look at it.
I want to bring up.
Simone brought a point. Go back if you can.
No, do this one. Go back to that one. Go back to Della's comment.
If the kid is black or brown, they are tried as an adult. But if they are white, they are mental.
That's not always true. But I like this comment.
I agree with her. Simone, I totally agree. All year, a student in my granddaughter's class had bullied her, and nothing has been done to stop it. So I told her she has to defend herself, and this is what he has been doing for the past 2 weeks.
I want to address that. The system does not allow for schools to discipline children. So it's easier to move a bully from a school, a victim of bullyism from a school than it is to remove the bully. Why is that? So this kid who came back and killed 21 people, right, said he was bullied. A few years ago in the Bronx, when he stabbed the kid in school because of bullyism. But yet still, you can't remove the bully from the school. You can't, the school system, you can't suspend kids. Oh, don't suspend kids because suspended black and brown boys. It's not just suspension, but it's suspension with rehabilitation. And that's the second part, the mental component that they're not doing.
Warren had put something. Can we go back to, he said there's no second chances. So basically we're saying no second chances. No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. We're not saying that.
Right. I'm not saying that either.
No.
I would never say that. I think people can be rehabilitated.
Right. We're not saying that. We're definitely not saying that. We're just saying, for example, if you come to a school building with a loaded gun, with the intention of hurting someone, I think you should be tried as an adult. If that is your motive, if you're carrying a loaded gun and you really don't understand quite, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, that's a different story. They're not coming. They might want to do show and tell or this and that. They're not coming in to say, hey, I'm coming in to kill this person because they attacked me. So the motives also determine, what
exactly
go about in doing, how we should go about in dealing with that situation. So that's
let me tell you something. My personal feeling, if you take a life, you get life. Because there's nothing that you can do
to bring that person.
No rehabilitation that you can do. Right? That's going to bring that person's back. So when you take a life,
we can be hypocrites too, because
I'm not being a hypocrite in that.
Hold on, we believe in redemption. We believe in giving people a second chance.
Not on that.
Some people, it takes it takes a long period of time for some people to realize what is done and feel remorseful. If Jesus can forgive,
that's true.
Who the heck are we to not forgive?
Not me. I didn't say I can't forgive them. I never said I can't forgive them. I said that you cannot bring a life
if
back.
You can forgive them, you can give them another opportunity in life.
Nope, not happening. You take a life, so from now on, you pull that trigger, you take up that knife, and you kill somebody, your life is also over. Period. Other crimes, no problem. You serve your time because it's heinous. When you kill somebody, there's nothing that you can do to bring that life back. That family, that 11-year-old girl in the Bronx, the 12-year-old boy in Brooklyn, the 19 children in Texas, the 14 or 10 people in Buffalo, none of them can come back and spend time with their family. Not even one. So no, I don't believe in that kind of redemption. And you're going to have to, I think God would have to come to tell me that I need to change my stance on that. I don't know. There are a couple comments up there. Andrea, pull them up. If you take my child life, someone go back to that one. I didn't finish reading it. If you take my child life, someone in your family, if I can't catch you in your family, live. Someone in your family, if I can't catch you, is dying too. I'm sorry. Wow. I'm not gonna go that deep, Simone. I totally agree with Simone. Wow. That's interesting. I don't think I would go that way. I will forgive. Oh, wow. Wow, Simone. That is deep. What's Sanji's comment? We can't forget. I hear you, Monet. Sanji made a comment. Sanji, code of Hammurabi versus turn the other cheek. Right? I'm not turning no other cheek, nothing.
Warren had made a comment too.
What was Warren's comment? I assume you're talking about premeditated. No, I'm not talking. I don't care what kind of murder it is.
Premeditated, yes. Premeditated murder, I think they should be tried as an adult. Yes.
No. Second degree, third degree murder, no. Manslaughter, no. Manslaughter, not as an adult.
My co-host and co-hostesses, that's why it is so difficult to make a blanket statement, because there's so many different variables that come into consideration when you're thinking about that. So
who feels it knows that my son was innocently shot before? Yes, I agree. No, I do think there are exceptions. I'm talking about first and second degree murder, by the way, John.
Well, you first and second degree, but there's so many different circumstances. You don't know the history of the individual. Was the individual abused when he was young? You don't know. There's so many different variables.
That is true.
So what I'm saying, thank you, Warren. That's what I'm saying. Every situation is different. So we cannot say a blanket statement, Roderick. A blanket statement, because that is irresponsible.
I'm not saying that blanket statement. You're right.
You made a blanket statement, brother. You said you take a life, you give a life, but you don't know the circumstances regarding that individual taking a life.
Okay. You know what? I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna back up a little bit. Right? Right?
Yo, why don't you back up? Why don't you back up and just say, first of all, I have to congratulate Miss Waterman for becoming the Assemblywoman of the 58th Assembly District. What was interesting is that there's only about 22 people who came out to vote in that special election.
2,200.
Oh,
2,200.
And how
I know
much
he said 22, but he meant 22.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah, Monique won by 74% of the vote. Yeah, Simone, on the subject, we can say whatever until it reaches our doorstep. That is true.
That is true.
That is true. But you know what, though, Simone, in John's defense and Joanne's defense and a couple of other people's defense, that's why they're laws. Because we sometimes are emotional and we react to it, and we're in the moment. And when we're in the moment, we cannot step to the side.
Yeah.
Right? But I will tell you right now, John, I'm not rolling back on first and second degree murder. Third degree, I hear you. First and second degree. Yeah.
So listen up. Our guest is on.
But I didn't say kill the person, though, by the way.
Listen.
I said they go to jail for life.
You know, when we talk about election, Simone mentioned that she really wanted the guy to win. That's, thank you for everyone who went out and voted. It is so important that we do go out and make our voices heard. And that's why, no offense to Monique, but okay. And that's why we want our guest to come on. So
our guest is here?
Yes, she is. So that
she's early.
It's all right. So that we know what to do when election time comes.
Simone, you're gonna miss. You are gonna get the first question for Yvette, for a congresswoman. I was gonna give you the first question, but okay.
Yes.
You're most welcome. Most welcome to what? What are you most welcome to, Tracy? I didn't see your comment in the post. Maybe we missed something. Guy, bring her on. Andre?
Is she ready to come on? We would love to hear. So hold on briefly. Simone
Oh
says
no, because she has the double Zoom. Today's Thursday's Bible study.
she said she'll hold on briefly until Congress.
No, Bible study. No, two different people. Tracy wrote "You're most welcome," but I didn't see the comment that she made for "You're most welcome."
And
Simone gets the first question to Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, so she is holding on briefly for that.
Yes. So let's get our guest on so Simone can ask a question. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. Uh-oh, you're muted. All right.
Hello, greetings, everyone. Good evening. It's certainly wonderful to be back with you. It's been some time and so much has transpired since we were last together. I think that, let me first of all acknowledge my brother, John Sampson, my cousin, Rudy Daly, of course, Dr. Bryant. It's always wonderful to be with you and the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in to the Village. So I will answer questions right away. Right now, I'm just so dismayed, distraught, and angry at the lack of action that we have been able to get from the United States Senate around this gun violence. Now, as I've shared with folks, we're constantly pushing for the Senate to pass the legislation that has already passed the House for close to 2 years now, with sensible gun violence prevention laws, things like red flag laws that would help us with identifying, individuals who may be threatening us with gun violence, who are in a domestic setting, living with us and amongst us, whether it's a child or a spouse or a partner. We need to get that done. Background checks, really, they're just some simple things that would make life so much safer for us. Yet these folks, they're wholly owned subsidiaries of the gun dealers and the gun manufacturers and the NRA. And it's a minority of people that have positioned themselves to block us from any movement. And the blood is on their hands. There's no doubt about it. The blood of our people is on their hands. And so we got to stay in this fight. We got to remind them elections are coming up and we got to go out and vote. I heard John Sampson and Rudy Daly talk about the great victory of our new Assemblywoman, Monique Waterman. And yes, indeed, we are proud. We are so happy to have her as our next representative in Albany. But I have to say, I was a bit disappointed to see that not even a full apartment building worth of people came out to vote. Think about it, it was 2,220 votes in that election for an assembly seat. If 2 buildings in Flatbush Gardens came out to vote, that would have been more than 2,220 people. So we've got to do our part. We've got to do much more to make sure that our voices are heard. This is a battle in a democracy where representation matters. And if we don't do everything in our part to stay in these streets, to exercise our franchise, then what we are getting is what we're asking for.
That's so true. So true.
It's what we're asking for. Our lack of engagement will be our own demise. So let me
Congresswoman, I want to jump in, and that's why people are getting upset with me when I talked about the special election. You got in the special election, and then almost 4 weeks later, then you have a primary election.
Yes.
2,200 votes. It costs a substantial amount of money for just to run that special election, and then to come right back, and you have to run a primary election. And even more pissed off. And I'm more pissed off at my former colleagues, the state Senate. What they did in redistricting, they were too overzealous. And as a result, they put our Democratic majority in Congress in jeopardy. They put their own majority possibly in jeopardy because of their overzealousness. And this is what I talk about Democrats, which gets me frustrated about them, especially those liberal ones. You know what I'm saying? We talk a good game, but we do something different. The Republicans, when they were in control, they always did just enough to go to the edge, but not go over it. But this is the first time I've known that a judge overturned those lines. A judge upstate, who put in his own special master to draw those lines at the detriment of our people, at the detriment, the loss of those seats, because we allowed the Senate Democrats, let's call it as we see it, the Senate Democrats were too overzealous. And what happened because of that? Our communities are going to suffer. That's why I'm pissed off and annoyed about that whole thing, Congressman.
Well, let me say this, John. You know, no one can be more upset and extremely concerned than those of us who are in the United States Congress and the House of Representatives. I mean, there was a point where both myself and Congressman Jeffries were residing in the same congressional district. That did not necessarily indicate that we would have been forced to run against one another, because indeed there's another open seat where the bulk of the congressman's current constituency resides. But there was no need for it. The breakup of Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights, you know, it's almost like a conspiracy that was taking place, and then we became willing participants in our own demise. So, you know, we've got to stay focused, and I really have to applaud the efforts of my brother, you know, my colleague, my partner in crime, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, and really putting up the fight and throwing up the flag and saying, hey, you know, look at the disenfranchisement of Black communities, Black and brown communities in our state under this construct. So the special master had to go back after the draft and really abide with what has historically been communities of interest, core communities, as was stated in his decision, so that Bedford-Stuyvesant was made whole once again, and so was Crown Heights. But like you said, you know, we have to all pay attention here. And yeah, there was some, I think, expectations of what would happen as a result of Democrats being in the majority, that the power and the, I guess, the camaraderie of those within the same party would have made their overreach acceptable, as it is in other parts of the country with Republicans, let's be clear. But I think that overreach tested the integrity of the courts. And the courts were saying, I'm not putting my credibility on the line to become political in an environment where politics is really driving a wedge in, you know, the body politic as we know it. The wedge is already there as far as I'm concerned. Donald Trump made sure that that would happen, particularly at the Supreme Court and the federal bench level. However, I don't know that two wrongs make a right. And we're gonna have to struggle with these lines for the next 10 years. I know that there's some who are talking about perhaps you know, taking it to the courts prior to you know, the 10-year tenure of these lines. However, you know, we have to do everything we can to be ready, you know, to be ready for whatever the courts ultimately decide, if there is a lawsuit that's brought, and or to live under the current construct, but be ready for the next census, and then the next drawing of the lines. It's unfortunate. You know, you don't get two bites at the apple when it comes to, typically, when it comes to redistricting. But hopefully, you know, the civil rights prescriptions that we're under that, you know, would continue to undergird the power of Black communities, of Latino communities, to be able to elect people who come from their own lived experiences, that there won't be shenanigans put in place to impede that ability for our communities to select candidates of their choice.
I want to jump around for a little bit. I did promise Simone, who's one of our weekly listeners, jump around because there are a couple of things I know you want to talk about as well. One of them is affordable housing. And so she immediately put that question up there. So Simone, not Simone, Sophia, can you bring up the question? Thank you. There you go.
Crackheads are getting affordable housing and hardworking people are struggling to pay rent. So that's not a question, that's more of a statement. But
no,
okay.
But the point is that we've been having this talk with the rise of inflation, the inaffordability of affordable housing for people at the mid, low, and middle class level. You're at the border. You don't qualify for anything. You don't get anything. But then we talk about affordable housing today. You know, I looked at the price of gas today, and we're talking about one of my persons that I was talking to said gas price was $6.19. Landlords can't pay mortgage, rent's going too high, and affordable housing really, truthfully, isn't affordable. And I know that's something that you're working on through your office. And so I did promise you more than first question.
Well, first of all, you know, let me just say this, that, you know, we kind of missed the boat as communities of African descent in being able to essentially insulate ourselves from the gentrification juggernaut that ushered in this overdevelopment within our communities of luxury apartments. You know, there were communities in other parts of the city that used the community board mechanism to down zone so that they wouldn't have the same level of pressure of large luxury developments within their communities. Notwithstanding that, you know, the fix was in some time ago, over a decade ago. You know, with all due respect to those who loved Michael Bloomberg, he was the one who put, you know, the poison in the pill, and understanding that he could exploit a development tool called the area median income that encourages development for the very wealthy, for the luxury folks. And what we did essentially was tinkered at the margins, you know. So at the state level, they had the 421 program, which sets aside a certain amount of units within each development for below market units. And typically, as Rudy said, we can't, you know, we make too much to be eligible, but we make too little to afford the luxury units. That's my Area Median Income Fairness Act has been introduced. And I've been working on this bill for quite some time. I introduced it in the last Congress, but I'm getting so much more support for it because I think the pandemic has really laid bare the way that our folks have been treated, the lack of equity in housing. And this is not only a New York phenomenon, it's happening across the country. Black communities are being displaced by luxury development, and we can no longer afford to see this, catalyst of luxury development within our communities without providing the opportunity for us to get units that afford the working class of our communities, the middle class of our communities, because we built this town, and it's up to us to make sure that we preserve it. The feedback that I've been getting around the Area Median Income Fairness Act has been tremendous, not only here in New York City, and believe it or not, we have some of our real estate folks who agree that the area median income needs to be dealt with so that we can get real fair housing for communities across the economic spectrum. as well as colleagues across the state, places like San Francisco, places like St. Louis, Missouri. I've even heard of Charleston, that in Charleston, South Carolina, right now, there are problems with the inability for people who have historically lived in Charleston to afford the rents there. So we're getting a lot of traction on this legislation, but I wanted the community to know, that they need to be advocating that my bill be moved forward. It gives the Secretary of HUD, former Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, the tools she needs to get the assessment of what would be an adequate area median income for communities like ours and communities across this country similarly situated, as well as provide financing for the various housing, community trust programs, and other programs to help subsidize the households that are being priced out. And I was just saying to some folks, the challenge here in New York City with the spike in homelessness is not only here, but it's across the country, is that we can't afford to go and we can't afford to stay.
That is so true. That is so true. Now, Warren has a question. What is considered affordable housing and how is that calculated?
Yeah, so what we're saying is that across the board, families should no longer have to pay 30% more or more of their income to cover their housing costs. So less than 30% of your annual income should be dedicated to your housing and nothing more. That is affordability, and that's across the board, no matter what your salary is. We're also saying that new calculation has to be, we are tasking the Federal Housing and Urban Development Agency with the task of determining, based on their calculations, their testing, their equity agenda, what makes sense in terms of an area median income based on localities. Right now, our area median income is dictated to a large extent by the fact that people in Scarsdale, Westchester are part of our area median income. In other words, their wealthy suburbs are averaged in with the average everyday household here in New York City. And when you bring in multimillionaires and you blend their income with someone who is working as a nurse, someone who is, working for a city agency, of course, it's going to escalate what the average income is in the city of New York, because you've brought in the wealthiest of the wealthy from Westchester County.
And let's not forget about
the media.
Let's not forget about Midtown Manhattan as well, because that's where you can't afford to live. The house is a major issue. The foolishness of Roe versus Wade. How and stripping women of the choice. It's to me, John and I speak about what we have allowed to happen, both as non, because I'm going to call it, because we're not voters, we're non-voters. We didn't come out and vote like we're supposed to, but now we're seeing the fruits of our in labor, or whichever word you want to use, the negativity of it. Because now you have Roe versus Wade. What can we do? What can we do? Because now you have a conservative court, and they're not leaving.
Listen, there are other ways to skin a cat. There are other ways to skin the cat, and the other ways of skinning the cat is that any law that's passed by the United States Congress trumps literally decisions that are made by the Supreme Court. So that's where our lever of power exists, in our vote, in our influence over other voters. we have got to do a massive mobilization and voting. Right now, there are so many of our rights that are on the line. I mean, you could go across the board, and we see Joe Biden trying to do as much as he can through executive order, but that only impacts at the federal agency level. It doesn't drill down to the states, the municipalities. That's where the Congress comes in. So, I want to encourage people, there are no excuses. If we expect our children to inherit from us a greater access to the American dream than the one that we inherited and what we are experiencing right now, then we have to make the sacrifice. We have to come out, we have to vote, we have to use our influence. We influence people all the time. I look at what's being said on social media and how people follow one another. Well, we need to know that this is a life and death situation. Literally.
Right.
We have legislation passed out of the House around gun violence. There's violence on every level right now, whether it's violence against women's autonomy and their ability to make decisions for themselves. We know that in many cases, particularly in our communities, many of our households are led by mothers. Can you imagine the loss in income that mothers will have if they don't have the autonomy to make decisions about their own reproductive rights and timing? I mean, it's atrocious. And then we have children and the nation doesn't assist in taking care of those children.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. We have children, they sit in a classroom and they allow gunmen to roam this country, have access to automatic weapons. We can go down the list right now. And so we have to have a sense of righteous indignation and use our votes as Malcolm X said, it's either the ballots or the bullets. And right now we are the beneficiary of the bullets. We better get out and get our ballots in.
My fear, right, and is that there are more states. I know you're asking to get out the votes, but there are more states that are red than are blue. And for those of you out there listening, red means Republican, blue means Democratic, right? There are more states that are red than blue. So I have one issue there, and one is that how do we get those red states? Right, because now you're gonna have people moving to the blue states or whatever the case is to get whatever productive choice they choose. Secondly, I am a firm advocate. I know they hate me, but I'm a firm advocate that men should have very limited decision about what a woman's reproductive rights are. And I find that a lot of men are pushing this more about a woman's reproductive rights.
What's new? Misogyny has always been with us, Rudy. And let me just say this, at the end of the day, we have the majority in the House, we have the majority in the Senate, notwithstanding the red states. And as our demographics continue to tick up, places like Texas, it's only a matter of time. They may already be at the tipping point. It's about people exercising and being animated about exercising their rights to vote. There are 90% of the people in the United States of America want gun control. 90%. So if that were just one issue that folk came out to vote for, it would happen. We know that women are highly, offended and are really concerned about what could come out of the Supreme Court any day now. Women outvote men. Men need to step up and do what they need to do to make sure that we can protect our communities. You know, there is about to be a decision coming out of the Supreme Court any moment now about New York losing the right to regulate whether people can carry concealed weapons in the city of New York. This is what we're dealing with, and it's because we're not taken seriously. They've done everything they can to suppress our votes. I've heard more conspiracy theories coming out of the mouths of Black people than a little bit. They're getting a steady dose of these, these what do we call them? Fake news from social media. We've got to really get ready with our lived experience.
You know, Congresswoman, you're correct, but I think what it is, man, people are just dismayed because we got the majority in all houses, we got the presidency, and the bottom line is inflation is up, gas prices are over $5. I mean, everyday expenses are so high. The baby formula, formula. I mean, you can always get formula, but now there's a shortage of formula. It's just the everyday things that people are seeing that are hurting it, and people are just tired of it. Just tired of we cannot pass sensible legislation in Congress. We got the majority, but in the House, we have the majority in the Senate, but it's not going anywhere. We're not doing.
Yeah, and you know what? We are long-suffering people, and if we get dismayed, what are we saying to our children? You know, I think about the fact that, people think that the civil rights movement started today and ended yesterday. It took decades, of constant pressure, engagement, stirring the pot, demonstration, protest, jailing to liberate us as a people. And we're going to throw up our hands when we know that the folks who have given us the vaccines to navigate through this pandemic, who have given us a soft landing in terms of stimulus checks and everything else, notwithstanding the lack of cooperation we got from the Republicans in the House and the Senate, we have been battling to get our people positioned where they need to. And unfortunately, that there are some unintended consequences with respect to the economy. We're also up against, what I call wickedness in high places. A lot of these corporations, we're trying to hold them accountable. They are taking advantage of the situation. There's so many ways in which, unfortunately, we got to get things right. But we know that's not going to happen if we allow the Republicans to take over. If it wasn't for Joe Biden, we wouldn't even had the vaccines distributed. Remember when Donald Trump left office, no one was vaccinated yet. No one. And they'd already, come up with the vaccines. So, we've got to also use our intellect. We've got to also use our common sense. And I understand, it is frustrating. It is tiresome. But you know what? Our people to get tired when they were seeking liberation for us. And we have an obligation not to get tired when we want to make sure that our children, again, inherit from us a much stronger community than the one we've inherited. We gotta sacrifice.
Congresswoman, you're correct, and the best example, and I talked about it to my colleagues earlier, was they're on the verge of overturning Roe versus Wade. That didn't take years. That took decades. But they were consistent in what they wanted to do.
Absolutely.
And they knew what the plan was. And you know what? He executed it. He had 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court. They were focused. Our problem is we're so scattered about different things. We're not focused on what's important. And what we need to be focused on is all politics is local. That's how you change the dynamics of what's going on in Washington.
And we should not miss one election. The elections for the House of Representatives, this is a midterm election year. The elections for the House of Representatives are going to take place in August this year. Unfortunately, the delay in redistricting has also delayed our elections. So we know that next month in June will be election for our statewide representatives, our governor, our attorney general, our controller, as well as the New York State Assembly. And then down the road in August, there will be another election held, which unfortunately it's August. A lot of people tend to be on vacation. Do an absentee ballot. There are many ways to skin a cat, but we have got to be in that number. We will be electing the House of Representatives as well as the New York State Senate. So we've got power. We've just not managed it well. The ebbs and flows. We got to vote in midterm elections. They're counting on us not to vote in a midterm election because that has been the trend over many years. We need to make sure that they know we mean business, because if we don't come out to vote, the signal we're sending is it's okay to gun down our children. It's okay to flood our communities with guns that are not manufactured in our community. It's okay to give away, all of these goodies to developers to displace us from our communities. It's okay to make sure that we're the least in the lost when it comes to any remedies around long COVID and other illnesses that are plaguing our people. It's okay. That's what we're saying when we don't come out of midterm elections, because that's where they gain their power. It's those midterm elections.
There are 2 points I want to bring up. One, when we talk about midterm elections, a lot of, especially blacks, and I hear it a lot on the ground, I only vote for governors and presidents in major elections. And John said that politics is local. We need to find a message to remind people the importance of those local midterm elections. Like, I don't know, maybe there need to be a lobbyist group or whatever the case is to get people out to vote, because we lose seats, and it's potentially the Democrats could actually lose the House of Representatives this midterm if people don't come out. So, but I want to switch the topic for a moment. And, we always talk about, well, there are 2 topics I want to talk about. So, but I'm going to hit one first. Immigration.
Well, Rudy, yeah. Rudy, I only have a limited amount of time left.
So Rudy, hurry up, man. You monopolize all the time, man. What's up, Vernon? Always good to hear from you, Vernon.
Yeah, but I want to add, okay, so maybe you could tie them in. One is when you look at the gas prices, inflation, we're looking at level, and the salary is not increasing to offset the cost of all of these things. Mm-hmm. What is happening? That's what's happening in Congress or U.S. government to help to alleviate some of the financial burdens that are happening to the American people, especially the middle class. The second question,
again, the House of Representatives have already passed multiple measures as like a pressure valve to assist our communities with the increase that's needed. We at one point had a child tax credit in place that gave communities additional funding to support their households. Until we can get inflation under control, and that's really done through the Federal Reserve, we're going to be struggling in this period. I'm just going to be honest with you. But all of the measures that we put in place to try to sort of ease the burden on our folks are being thwarted once it gets over to the United States Senate. And remember, yes, the Democrats hold the majority, but they only hold the majority if Kamala Harris can vote. They only hold the majority if they can get through the filibuster, which requires 60 votes. So, there's a lot at stake here. We have to understand that we can't get played because they are playing chess and we are playing checkers. Mm-hmm. We have got to stay on top of our politics, understand that it's a minority of people in this country who espouse white supremacy that are now dictating by using the rules to further our demise. We have got to get out and vote, and again, use our influence. We all know people in Florida. We need to make sure they out there voting. We all got folk in Georgia. We need to make sure that they come out and vote. We all have folks in other parts of the country. We need to make sure, because and Texas for that matter. A lot of West Indian folk have moved to Texas. If our people would go out and vote in these states, Texas, Florida, Georgia, we can be the difference in the margin of victory for, you know, the Senate Democratic candidates. We could be changing these state legislatures. We can make sure that someone like a DeSantis is not, you know, running buck wild over the rights of people of African descent. Let's use our influence. Let's do our part and show the example to our relatives, our friends and relations in other parts of the country. It's a movement, and we've got to be a part of it.
I appreciate that. The other question has to go around immigration, right? The laws that's come in place, I think coming this June or May, it's coming this July, there's certain laws that's going to sunset as it comes to immigration. A lot of people who are not necessarily documented or trying to get documented are very nervous. And I know that
there are certain things that we can do just by virtue of the Biden administration to sort of extend, and I know what you're talking about, temporary protected status, TPS.
Right.
We've got to make sure, and they will, I'm quite certain, given the dynamics right now with the pandemic and everything else, and the worker shortage, there is a worker shortage in the United States, that TPS will be extended. Deferred departure will also be extended by the Biden administration. Thank God they're there. Thank God they're there. But, you know, these are temporary measures. You know, folks are living, you know, from extension to extension. That's no way to live your life. That's no way to raise your family. That's no way to invest in the country. So comprehensive immigration reform will always be my point of focus. And it's critical that we get folks in office. Like I said, expand that majority in the Senate and hold the House so that we can pass comprehensive immigration reform. These folks will continue to demonize, immigrants. They will continue to invest in border walls so that they can, funnel funds to their friends who are in construction firms. This is all a racket. And this minority, white supremacist minority, is doing everything they can to hold on to their white supremacist ideology and subordinate all the rest of humanity in our civil society. We can't allow that to happen. We have the power to stop it from happening, but don't, buy into, their fake news and their conspiracy theories, all in an effort to suppress your power and to heighten theirs. So we got work to do, folks. And I want to thank you, Rudy. I want to thank you, Dr. Brian and John, for having me this evening. I look forward to furthering this conversation. It's a lot going on, y'all. And I'm in the battle. I'm in the front fight. I'm on the front lines. And I would not tell you wrong. I know that the vote is the liberating factor here. And I can tell you, having worked with John Lewis, he believed in the vote because he saw in his lifetime the transformative ways in which the vote was used to liberate our people. So we've got more work to do. Liberation is one thing, but we also need prosperity and equity in our society. And, to be able to live in peace without the threat of our rights being taken away or that violence will meet us in the streets.
Yeah, it is spectacular. Often, like I said, you're working very hard in Congress. You're working very hard to help our community to strive. Both, proud of you, proud of Mama, and daddy. You know, I don't want to make. You didn't say. We don't want to leave them out because my big cousin is gonna beat me up if we leave her out, and beat you up too. And by the way, I did an interview at the new Flatbush Market, Flatbush Central Market. Little Juju over there, is very excited, about that. So I want to say congratulations to you. And I spoke to Mary Jo, interviewed her last week at the opening on May 13th. She's very excited and thankful for you and your mother for what you have done to ensure that something like that happened and to bring back to our community. So I want to thank you.
It goes back to, the dignity and respect that needs to be afforded our people. And, Dr. Clark has been a leader in that space. I mean, when other people were thinking small, she had a vision for greatness for our people and dignity. And when you look at that new market in Cajun Flats, that is part of that vision, and I was raised in that environment. There's no way that I would let my mother's investment and vision, which was something we all could envision. It was a dream for all of us to see our people treated with dignity and respect and be able to use their entrepreneurial spirit to take care of their homes, their families, and our extended community. And to see that new market open up is one of the proudest moments in our lives. So thank you, Rudy. And let me thank all of you for your encouragement and your support. We've got a lot of work to do. We can't get tired. We can't get weary. I mean, listen, I come from a legacy of a woman named Nanny of the Maroons. And let me tell you something. She beat those British down in Jamaica. We know how to fight, and we're going to stay in the fight until we are victorious.
And you know what? We have work to do on our end to go out and vote, and not just let people, wait for the governor election or the president election. We have to go out and vote and say, and make noise. Like you're out there fighting, we have to fight on our end, because it takes two. It takes not only two, but multiple. Many hands make light work. And
exactly.
All right, and thank you so much.
As my mother says, one hand can't clap.
You're right.
Yep. Our one coca full basket. So that's that's a lot of those expressions. Thank you so mumuch, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, for joining us today in the village.
It's great to be with you, and I look forward to seeing you again. And for all of your listeners, thank you for your commitment to engaging with this platform. It's one way for me to get my message to you, but the information that this team brings to you each week is invaluable information. So stay tuned, stay involved, get out and vote, stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks for having me, Rudy.
All right, God bless.
Bye, everybody.
All right. It is a spectacularly awesome to have our congresswoman come out and and speak to the people, because at the end of the day, speaking to the people is what you need to do. And John, some of those questions that we have and concerns about, we get some answers, right? People get an opportunity to say, that was a very good question that Warren asked about affordable housing. How's it calculated?
Mm-hmm. You went out. What happened?
I guess they put him out.
Huh?
Oh, we thought we had silence for a moment.
Oh no, don't worry, my phone never stops ringing. But I want to moving on to something important coming up on Monday. Monday's Memorial's Day, right? And we'll be celebrating. Hopefully, everyone out there, happy Memorial's Day to all of you. If you have somebody that you want to shout out there, a veteran who has passed on, shout them out. Shout them out while you're there. All those Vietnam War veterans, the current war that's going on, Afghanistan. I know my brother. I speak about my brother Devon Campbell all the time. Lost a number of people, and he was involved in the Gulf War. He was involved in Iraqi freedom and Afghanistan, and he lost a lot of his friends. just a little historical component. The Memorial Day came about after the Civil War in 1868, right? And it's in May because the idea of the flowers and the fresh flowers, put the fresh flowers on the graves to memorialize our fallen heroes across the United States, and also for everyone know that on the contemporary sense, it is the start of summer, right? So it's the start of summer. So if you're going to travel this weekend, know that give an extra hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. They're expected, the AAA is expecting over 50 million people who've been moving about the United States. So whether you're celebrating life or celebrating death, commemorating death, not celebrating death, but commemorating death, know that our hearts are with you for that.
People aren't traveling that much with the gas prices the way it is.
No, people are traveling. People are traveling.
I don't know.
The airport was full yesterday.
I know the barbecue will be out in full effect, but the travels, I don't know.
But maybe a lot of people are not driving anymore. But everything is expensive now.
Yeah, you're right.
Everything is too damn expensive.
John, let's form a new party. Everything is too damn high.
Everything's too damn high.
You know, can't afford rent, can't afford gas. Somebody, John,
do not lose hope. And that's what's happening. People are starting to lose hope.
Yes, they are.
I
have a question for you, John.
Can you blame people for losing hope when the people that you entrust to provide some form of stability, they can't even get their act together?
Yo, listen, it's all right. But you know what I'm upset about? The assassination attempt on George W. Bush. I love that man. I love George W. Bush. Let me tell you.
I know you were always a closet Republican.
I don't know. No,
Let me tell you, I love George W. Bush. Let me tell you, he actually entertained me for the entire time he was in office. I laughed every night because there was always a joke about him.
And you voted for him both times.
But you know what? I give him credit because the museum in DC, he was a big advocate for making sure that museum, African American museum, came to light. So I give him credit for that, and his wife for education. So I don't care. You call me a closet Republican if you want to, but George W. Bush, I'm a fan of. I'm sorry.
Now,
just like she's a closet weed smoker.
Real cute. John, real cute.
I agree with you, John. That she is. Listen, George W. Bush looks like a saint compared to Donald Trump. So it's ridiculous, and that they really in America. We're talking about gun violence, and this is what's coming on the news.
Right.
Right. So for me, I think people fail to understand death has no color.
That's true.
It has none. So we need to start loving ourselves. We need to go back to, we have to go back to Christian values and believe that act upon others as we want others to act upon us. So if you want to go around killing people, is that what we want people to do? Kill our families? Don't just think of you if you have some issues, but think about your family members.
You're so right. See, Warren, you agree with me. He was smart enough to understand what he didn't. And he surrounded himself around people who did.
Yes, he did. That's one thing I could give him credit for. He didn't think he was smarter than he made sure that smart people were around him.
Yeah.
And that's why I have you two, because you guys are smart people around me. They're my dumb self.
And on that note, we want to thank the villagers for listening tonight. Warren, Vernon, Miss Harris, I want to thank all our villagers.
Right. I want to spend a special shout out to everyone. Happy birthday to a couple of my friends, Tony, to Tashara. Happy birthday if I missed you. This year would have been my uncle's 65th birthday, so I remember him during Memorial Day. Happy birthday, Auntie Maureen. No, not happy birthday, but hi, Auntie Maureen and my parents. They're in your medicine. Dr. Buddha Philly, Simone, everybody for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Village. Remember, success is not just spoken, it is done. What are you doing to be successful? Please, we're asking you to subscribe to our page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Della, welcome back. I forgot to say welcome back. I've seen you a little bit. So welcome back, Della. Hope things works out with your granddaughter as well. If I missed you, we love you and thank you and appreciate you. Subscribe. The Village Radio Talk Show on YouTube. God bless. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
Enjoy. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.